This video is called The Indigos, and I'm going to do my best to put a link in the description so that you can watch a video from 2000 by Ashayana Dean. We're going to do some housekeeping a little bit, and then we're going to get into more about what is happening right now with the sun and our consciousness and why you need to preserve yourself. And particularly preserve yourself from pathogens that might change your blueprint, your divine tree of life blueprint. So I think that the video that I'm hoping to share from 2000 by Ashayana Dean will explain to you more, because it's a 3-hour video, but I took notes. I don't actually have my notes with me because I'm in a public place right now, but I can remember everything that she said, because as I said about Ashayana Dean, the way I found her was that people kept saying, you're saying the same thing as Ashayana Dean. So that's when I got her Voyagers Volume 2 as a 3-ring binder and read it very quickly. It's thousands of pages long in the 3-ring binder form. But if you read it, you'll understand our whole galactic history and why your blueprint is so very important, because it's the way to actually relieve ourselves of the, what I'm going to call denigration, like the ruination of our true spiritual lineage. Okay, but I wanted to do a little bit of housekeeping first. So just be okay with the fact that I need to do this right now, because I've been talking a little bit more about the predator mind, and unless you make public videos and you have content yourself, you don't realize what many of us experience. So every day I have comments with people who are trying to find out where I live, and they found old videos of Claude and I in the Vermont house, and I actually had someone say, now I'm the blade, I'm the slasher, and now I know where you live. And they had listened to a video with my friend John and I when we were talking about the spider beings, and said some very offensive things. That's what, when you're creating content, you're dealing with people like that every day. It's a predator mind type of thing. And the other thing I want you to realize, that even though I'm sharing information, and as I've said before, I'm kind of a galactic librarian, so I really need to share this information. It's not just for you. It's part of the consciousness of the whole galactic library, that I'm witnessing what's going on here, and I'm sending this back to like the whole galaxy, because as I've said, I'm a galactic shaman, and my tool that I've used is astrology. And I'll explain more about astrology in this video also, and why you need to know your astrology. But so if you're entering this space with me, you're in a library. So I want you to know that. You're receiving information that is a library that I have been collecting of what's going on here. Because in the holographic universe, we are all very connected. As I've explained it before, it's like Russian stacking dolls. Like, we're all in this together. Like, the whole multiverse is part of what's happening here. So if this place breaks, it's like the whole Russian stacking dolls, one of the dolls is broken inside, and then the whole of the Russian stacking dolls will collapse. So what's happening here, and why you must protect your divine blueprint, is because it's affecting everywhere. It's not just this one little fractal of consciousness that we're in. This affects the entire holographic universe. And people have argued with me that it's a simulation and it's not real. And I'm like, it's very real. It's extremely real. Okay, but yes, can there be holographic inserts? Yes, of course, because that's the nature of reality anyways. Like, we are literally making this up. And I've explained before how when I had my experiences in the void, I would come back, and like the white strand of light emanating from me was literally creating, this and this chair and this pillow. Like, we are consciousness creators. So we are very much connected to the whole multiverse, and even though it's holographic, it is also very much real. But in terms of the library that I'm creating with my videos, they're not just for you. So they're for the multiverse to know what's going on here. And since I was born here, I have a very important role, as you do, in transmitting what's going on here. So if you're one of those people who are watching my videos, ask yourself right now, why are you watching my videos? Are you part of this network of consciousness that gives and receives information from the multiverse? Or do you have a predator mind where you're just trying to get me, like through revenge or something because I have good boundaries? Like, why are you watching this video? Because what I've noticed is the predator mind is really increasing. I have a lot of stalkers. I have people that I would call peeping toms that will take one of my videos and they'll like make a screenshot and they'll scroll into like an area in my house. So that's why a lot of people won't make videos without like a tapestry behind them, because there are people literally who have taken my videos and will scroll into like my house and try and figure out. And I've had people comment on like my electrical system, which is not even my electrical system, but they think they're looking at a picture of my house, which they are not. And that's the predator mind. People who want to get me. Okay? So if you're watching this video because you want to get me, I can tell you that you are operating with something other than your divine blueprint. You're operating with the predator mind, which means that you have consented with the demiurge. And that's a real problem, because what I have seen, and I've told you for a bit now, that I could feel the morphogenetic field changing, like particularly over the last 5 years, I could feel it changing. And what I see in my mind's eye, because I very much operate as a psychic, I have inner seeing, is the people that have this, there is literally a black hole where there ought to be pure light. And what your blueprint is it's an antenna for light. And what I see inside the cellular structure of people that have done this is literally a black hole that is enlarging. And what I heard from Gaia this week, and I really listened very carefully for the entire week to Gaia about what is happening here with the consent, okay? And I kept hearing from Gaia that the people who signed their name to the experiment, you have signed your name in a contract. And I talked about that a little bit in the last video. You are now a GMO, you know what I mean? And you are patented. You have signed your name to have that black hole or black goo inside of your body. So I'm going to show you a little picture. And this picture is, and I wrote this all down somewhere, and I'm not sure where it is in my notes, but this picture is a magnification of what you are inside of your cellular structure. And what I see inside of people's cellular structure now is literally black holes inside of the cellular structure. So your DNA cannot transmit light. Jeez, I just said it. Well, your blueprint cannot transmit light if you've got a black hole, because what that does is it sucks, and it basically sucks it into entropy. So that's what's happening, all right? So you've got to understand that. And the reason that I want you to watch Asha and Nadine's 3-hour video about the Indigos is that basically what's happening with this system environment is that if it's Russian doll in the stacking of the cosmos, okay, if it's Russian doll, and say Andromeda is like the 15th Russian doll in the stack, And I've talked before about the whole constellations and our mythos, and the reason astrology is so important is that it's actually our history. And Andromeda was harvested by Perseus, who asked Cassiopeia and Cepheus, and then took her over the great river Eridanos, across the Draco stars to this place, right? So that's the harvester mythology. And go back to Stars, Stones, and Scholars, which is the book that I reviewed, that there's monuments all over this planet that tell that history. So the stars are a library, and that's what I am. I'm a librarian of this whole situation. So that's why I'm making the video. So if you're here to get me, and you're like some kind of a predator who's like trying to spy and see where I am and whether, you know, that electrical outlet is okay or not, and you're like zooming in and making pictures and then making comments like that, you're missing the big picture. And that's how I know that you're in your predator mind. So boundaries are incredibly important right now, folks. You've got to realize like there is an infection going on here, and your boundaries show how responsible you are to the light that you are, the being that you are, the divine creatorship that you are, the miracle that you are, or as I've said, the pure joy of the cosmos that you are. That's what you are. So let me read from my notes and just make sure I have all this correct. So your DNA is a transmitter of light that creates reality. As I said, like when I'm in the void and I kind of fall back into the void space, just like in the cosmos, I would swoon into this nothingness of pure nothing. And then when I would come back out, I would see the light of me is literally creating all of this. So when you're starting to worry about the sun and, you know, how we're going to go through the sun and the magnetosphere is going to reverse and everything, if you know that you're making this all up anyways, like you are basically a divine creator, you won't be so worried about that passage, okay? If you're worried about that, then you have to ask yourself why. If you took this and you're no longer your original blueprint, then yeah, I can see that. And Ashayana Dean very clearly explains, and in her Voyagers Volume 2, way back in 1997, she expected even then only like 8% of the population would even make it. So even back then, she was teaching and training and writing books and trying to explain. And yes, I know since 2012, she got a handler, and so she's not public anymore. But I can understand why. I mean, this is so difficult to get this information out. And then you have people endlessly messaging you and sending you videos for you to review and like, you know, doing these big arguments, you know, and I'm going, look, this is my library. Like, if you're respectful and you're quiet and you act like a decent human being, then I'll respond to you. But if you're like a peeping Tom stalker, who is trying to manage my page and my information, you're doing this with a predatory mind, right? So you're not respecting the library. This is my room, right? This is my space. This is my library that I am. So please do understand that. So we're in a very fragile position right now because, as I said, I think we're down to more like 4%. Different from Ashayana Dean said. And in order to hold this structure together, in order for us not to become unresolved dead consciousnesses, we have to do this. This is incredibly important. And other star systems, which I'm going to show you some images of our galactic history, and why the constellations come with these stories, is because they are what happened in our galactic history that we have to remember, which is why studying the stars and astrology is so important. And this is not a natural system. We have a solar system of archons. Basically, the only good planets, in my opinion, are Jupiter and Chariklo. Neptune's okay, but it can also make intoxications and addictions and hallucinations, but also great creativity and imagination. But Jupiter's the only friend, neighbor in this system environment that I even consider beneficial. Mars is dead, Venus is dead, Tiamat is dead, Earth is on the brink, and that means you're on the brink because you are Earth. You are Earth. You are literally the creator that is creating this. All right, you are the impulse of pure light that makes all of this manifest. Okay, so we have to preserve our blueprint. As Ashana Dean said, there were 3 different groups of indigos coming in, and I'll name them very quickly, and they're numbered, and their birth dates are even known. So there were indigos, the level 3, that might have dual personalities. They combined the Nephilim, who also need to get out of here. So that's the Draco invasion. And the Nephilim have combined with some beings that you would see as like a split personality. They might have one color eye and then another color eye. They might love you, but they also might be very cold and willing to eat you. And Ashana Dean said that Jeffrey Dahmer was in fact one of those examples. And I've reviewed Jeffrey Dahmer's chart. He had the planets in unbelievable conditions. Like his Mercury was a domicile lord. His Venus was a domicile lord. I think he had the moon in Aries, so he had that like Martian, Nephilim, like Draco energy to him. But he would say that he loved his people so much that he had to eat them. That's an example of an Indigo 3, which is trying to rectify that blueprint in order to hold the consciousness of Gaia together. I'm not talking about starseeds. I'm literally talking about what has happened here as a history in the library of trying to rectify the rape invasions that have happened here. So the Nephilim Indigo 3s were a combination of a very high DNA template with a very distorted or reversed DNA template of the Nephilim. So you can see some of the people out there that might act like that, and they're very gifted, but they're also extremely demonic. One that I don't know, but I would say the example would be like Alabar Jones. He seems very good, very, very good. And he's right about a lot of things. Like he also said this week that Gaia, basically it's a court of law. If you consented and signed your name to this, you've aligned with the dark side. So I want you to know that. And I heard the same exact thing before his video. So that's like the Ethernet of the Indigos. Many of you are Indigos, okay? So he's not doing sessions. I have this from a friend who is also a client that I work with and talk to regularly. Payment is made, but session never happens. And that is because I think the type of Indigo he is trying to be responsible, but there's this other part in there that can't quite get it. And he's also a man, so I don't know that his brain chemistry is not breaking down. So I've just got to be straight about that, folks. Many of you are private messaging me with concerns that you are responsible for your own consciousness, not me. But I'm going to tell you, I think he's probably an Indigo 3. I'm an Indigo 2. So when you hear Ashayana Dean talk about the Indigo 2s, that's what I call the spirit fire women. And I have been looking for you too. So Ashayana Dean was apparently looking for us way back in 2000 because we had to be raised a very certain way. We had incredible rebel spirits. We were very psychic. We were super connected. And I would say most of my clients fit in that category of Indigo 2s. And you can see that I only have about 5,000 people even listening to my videos. So I would say a lot of them have unfortunately been deceived and had another path. So there's even a smaller number of us now. And we carry very high DNA codes, kind of like I've told you about. When the invasions happened, they would take those with the highest DNA codes and then rape and breed something else from them. Your job is to restore your blueprint. Your job is to upgrade, in fact, to 12 strands or higher. Way before Oceanidine even existed, I knew and I heard that I have 23 strands. And I've said that before, and people are like, how? That's not even the right number. Particle, antiparticle, all that stuff that Oceanidine is talking about, but I'm pretty sure one was clipped. And that may have been because of my father's toxicity from Agent Orange. So I have the 23, but I'm supposed to have the 24. Many of you also have this. So what is your mission here? People always say this, like, what am I doing here? You're holding the divine blueprint. That's why my videos for years now, for at least 5 years now, and I used to do these ceremonies of the tree of life, and I'd put like crystals all over this big, beautiful art piece, and I would do like ceremonies and smudgings and clearings and all these things that I was like, we have to protect the blueprint. And those of you who know me from that period, I used to make live videos and invite you to see the crystal grids that I was laying out. And I was also a grid worker. So some of you knew me during that too. Before I even got online, I didn't even have an internet connection, folks. I didn't have internet until like 2017. So I was putting what's called star stones all over the planet. And Oceanidine talks about that. Some of you were on those trips with me, so you know. And you might even know where I put them. But that was so that we didn't have the crustal displacement type of pole shift, and that we're just going to go through light, back to our original form, and transfigure back to what we are supposed to be. We've been degenerated to the lowest possible thing here. So, I mean, even if we get incinerated, it's like, we can't go any lower than what's happened here. And it's up to us to basically hold these stacking Russian dolls of the entire cosmos, because our Earth system is one of those stacking dolls, and you are incredibly important in the whole cosmos. You're a miracle, okay? And then there's the Indigo ones, and those are the galactic walk-ins. And if you read the 3-ring binder, like the expanded edition of the original Voyagers Volume 2, you'll even get the birth dates. Now, those people, some of them have come to me. I know some of them. Those people are not supposed to be well known until they've been here a certain number of years. So the galactic walk-ins are starting to be known. I've introduced you to one. All right, and I do suggest that you study that, because those people needed to walk in, and there were agreements, and Oceanidine explains all of that. And I can do their astrology, because I have their birth time and everything, because Oceanidine recorded when they came in. So I have their charts too. So if you want to meet with me for the walk-ins, who are the good, beneficial walk-ins, I am happy to do your chart for you. So those ones had to come in, because when you are born here through a womb, you're kind of programmed by that womb. And for me, I came through, as you've heard, multi-generational trauma. So I had to come through with Pluto at 27 degrees Virgo, and then in the 12th house, and then it passed through my first house, my second house, my third house, my fourth house. All my personal life has been destroyed and remade again and again and again. So that's also why when I hear people whining and complaining about their troubles and how they might have to do this, and I'm like, do you know what I've been through? Oh my gosh. And I don't need to get into that, because I know that I am pure joy. I know that I know what I am. I know what you are too. And that you can do this. You absolutely can do this. You will absolutely triumph, and we will absolutely hold this Gaia consciousness together. Which reminds me of something else I wanted to explain. So when I used to talk a lot about the demiurge structure, that was an overlay. And do you remember when I explained there were multiple overlays on top of an organic, pristine environment? Because you don't just make a demiurge structure. It has to be put upon a beautiful organic reality. So as the good people, including Alabar, and not that I'm not going to train with him, because now I fully realize from my own clients that he's a man and maybe he's having some issues, but he's not being responsible in terms of doing sessions and doing his business. But I think I am trained, and you are trained too. It's just a matter of remembering what you are, remembering that you are this beautiful, beautiful divine being who is holding a consciousness code, okay? So yes, that's the info on the Indigos. The other thing Ashayana Dean said, and I'm going to repeat it a third time, is that one of the scenarios that can play out, which is why I so strongly spoke against the whole draconian agenda, is that there's a possibility that they will send in the ships or a ship, and these very tall Pleiadian, Nibiruan beings will get off the ship and say, "We're your gods. We created you. I'm Moses. I'm Jesus. I'm Abraham. And we're here as the second coming." So just know that that is a likelihood, and we've already been through this baloney, so please do not fall for it. It's a likelihood that could absolutely happen, and Ashayana Dean says the same thing, and I know that that is a plan. That is absolutely a plan, and do not believe them. You were not created from an ape, as the draconians so want us to believe, that they somehow genetically modify us from apes, but the rest of the apes are still apes. But like, I became Lolita somehow. It's amazing. No, you are a beautiful divine being. You are not created from an ape. You are a perfect, pure consciousness of light. You are solidified light. That's what you are. Okay, so let me just look at this whole thing about the Russian dolls. I went through that. The light that you are is full of potential. So this is the thing about, like, when I swoon and then I'm suddenly in this void space, and then I see this white light, like literally looks like starlight coming out of me, creating this whole reality. That's what you are, and that's why it's not worrisome to pass through the sun. Remember, you are the sun. You are the light. You are this beauty that is creation. You are creating it. In fact, you are a creator. So you can bring forth all new potentials. When we do this passing through, you are going to come out back to what you were supposed to be in your true form, which is pure creation, which is light, okay? Right now, you're very slow-moving light, but nevertheless, you are light. So this reality is going to change and expand and move through. And what Ashayana Dean also said is, don't interact with too many of these people that have the wrong codes, because it can reverse your codes. So like what I showed you with that picture image of, what it looks like under a microscope, I see a deep black hole inside of the cell structure of humanity that has done this. So if you're interacting too much, remember that that's sucking energy from you. As I told you, these devices are sucking your biophotons, like they're sucking your light. And Ashayana Dean warned, like, be very careful about listening to people who are channeling the Pleiadians or the Nibiruans or the Draconians or the Zetas or whatever, because just that interaction of listening to a channeler who's channeling the wrong thing can mess up your codes. Because again, your blueprint is an antenna. Get this, it's an antenna. So if you're receiving the wrong information, you're reversing your codes. And your codes are, that is why you're here. You're here to hold the code of the divine human. So often I'll get a session, and yes, you can just, tell me about your dreams and tell me about your life and tell me about your dog and where you live and stuff. Like, that's good. I am a counselor. But also, people will say, well, what am I doing here? I'm like, you are keeping your body healthy because you are in a human spacesuit and you are holding some very important codes. Okay, that's what you're doing here. So also in terms of housekeeping, yes, this is the library. Please be respectful. Please be quiet. Do not be stalking me or like zooming in. I'm not even in my own yard right now. So if you want to zoom in and try and figure out where I live because you're a stalker, ask yourself why you're doing that. You have the predator mind in you. Okay? We have to go to Zoom or a phone call or Messenger now. Skype, I tried to load the new Skype. It's just crazy. I got security alerts. Just forget it. So if you're going to have a session, please send me the Zoom link because the host records. I can send you the Zoom link, but I don't record anyone's private. I don't keep your stuff. Like, this is your private session with me. So if you're the host, you can record, but if I send the Zoom link, then I have to allow the recording, and you have to have a device to determine whether you're going to record that to the computer or the cloud. So things are changing. It's, things are changing, folks. You can see it. Things are changing right now. I'm hoping that we can get to know technology very soon. But right now I'm booking to the second week of June, so I want you to know that. But we've got some great transits coming in too, so I wanted to talk a little bit about the description that I did. With Saturn going into Aries, Saturn is this slow-moving, enduring, hard work, disciplined ruler of Capricorn, which is steady and structured. Okay? As the ruler of Aquarius, Saturn is highly responsible and almost like a hermit who lives on their own and develops their own unique consciousness or their own philosophy. So Saturn is the ruler of Capricorn and Aquarius. So you can understand that. When Saturn is moving into Aries, which it is doing on May 25th, Aries is the opposite of Capricorn, okay? Aries wants to move fast. Capricorn wants to be slow and steady and disciplined and persevere and do hard work as like an architect, okay? Aries doesn't want to finish anything. Aries is just like, let's do something. Oh, I got a new idea. I'm going to do this. And Claude, my partner, is the perfect example of Saturn and Aries. So he'll open the bag and he'll like eat some granola or nuts or whatever, but then he can't take the time to like seal the bag back up. So that's Saturn and Aries. Okay? It doesn't persevere. It doesn't continue, which in a good way is why Claude does not act as a patriarch. He's very allows me to be a matriarch. So that's why also I've been talking about the matriarchy, because Saturn is moving into Aries, and it's going to be there until April of 2028. And Saturn is in a fall in Aries. So it does not bring about those conditions of patriarchy anymore. Whereas Jupiter, which is this expanding, growing, beautiful, light-filled planet, and I think with that and Chariklo are the only beneficial planets within our neighborhood here of the system environment. It's going into Cancer, which hasn't happened since 2013, and we will have that in the middle of June. So that's where Cancer is like emotionally supportive. It wants everyone to feel safe. So when Jupiter's moving in there, we're going to have an expansion of the feminine waters of Cancer that really, really care. So that's when I'm going to start really expanding on like couples counseling, partners, relationship. The women are all like, oh, I want my man to do this, but he doesn't believe in it. And I'm like, well, when I can tell his whole life in about 6 minutes, he'll believe in it. Because what astrology is, it's the intermediaries to the neural network, which are the stars. So what it is in this system environment is it's your magnetized light body. So the moment that you take your breath, whether you're a walk-in or you're born here, you magnetize the actual position of the entire cosmos with these intermediaries in between. Now, I think of them basically as archons, like they collect our experiences rather than our direct connection to the fixed stars, which I've talked about before. I think that they are wanderers, they're archons, and that they were placed here in this matrix. And in fact, Ashayana Dean does agree with that in her book, Voyagers Volume 2. Like, these things were brought in. And if you watch her video, she says, it's because we're actually so powerful, but we got raped with this Nephilim blueprint so that we weren't allowed out there because we're literally that powerful that they brought in these intermediaries in this particular fractal, in this particular matrix to kind of slow us down, right? That's what Saturn does. It makes us work harder. It makes us discipline ourselves. So in Aries, that is in a fall. And last video I talked about the masculine spin rate, which goes a little bit faster. That's going to continue to fall, which will help the feminine to rise. And at this point, we need the feminine to rise, okay, which really cares deeply about Mother Earth. What else did I want to talk to you about? Oh, yeah. So, you know, there are people that are talking about how the 5G actually makes a grid. And so there is information about there that has nothing to do with the internet. That's what's controlling the minds of everyone who did that. So Nish did a great conversation with Dr. Alonzo. I'm sorry. He did the Aleph Tav body system of the Hebrew letters. So remember, I got into the Hebrew letters a little bit. The Hebrew letters are one of your fire codes. I think there's 5 different languages that make your fire codes. He and Nish were talking about on the Cosmic Salon podcast that the people that did that, they go through like a state of dementia where they kind of forget, and I've seen this with some of my neighbors, like they can't really remember anything for a while, and then suddenly they do, and it's because they're being run by this, okay? They're being run by an artificial grid, which makes the flower of life, which is not the correct pattern for your blueprint, by the way. And Ashayana Dean went into that extensively, all right? So you are interacting with people that seem like your parent or your friend or whomever, but you're actually interacting with a biorobot. And I unfortunately know that now from my own family. So you are interacting with someone who seems to have the same consciousness, but remember when they went through that little dementia phase, that was called the turning. And I've reviewed all that stuff on my BitChute videos. So the stars are not just emitters of consciousness, but they are actually libraries of information. So I want to show you a library of information. This is Orion, that you can think of as a hunter. Orion is also associated with Gilgamesh, okay? And the rape invasion from the Orions, and Gilgamesh in particular, which you can read about that history in the Epic of Gilgamesh. That's Orion. Look at the bow towards Taurus, the bull. And I've already reviewed this, how in the Bible, there's all this perpetual holocaust and raping of the bull, Taurus. So here's Orion with the arrow, and this is his club, okay? And he's beating and raping and destroying the bull, Taurus. That's the Pleiades. The Pleiades are at like 28 degrees Taurus to 3 degrees Gemini. So the Pleiades are those 7 sisters. What I understand is in the Orion Wars, we were so decimated that we can never recover that trauma. But the constellations tell the story of our galactic history. I don't know if there's enough people who could really study this with me, but what you are in your chart is you are that galactic history. So if you have like Saturn and the moon in the Orion stars at that hunter, you're recalling in your deep unconscious mind what happened in the Orion Wars. So that is how that works. If you have Nessus at like 13 degrees Gemini, which would be right in those Orion stars, you know, that's the rape, and that's where I have it. That's the rape, the horror that went on in Orion, and that's how I remember that. I remember that through the astrologos, the language of the stars, of the cosmos, you see. Some of you, I have told you that this is a particular star, like Sirius B, right, at 13 degrees Cancer. That one, I have said, look at that star. It's like a blue blinking star. And I remember connecting, particularly when I was in Hawaii. I think it was like a Lemurian experience I was having. And I was looking at Sirius, and she was just speaking to me, absolute speaking to me. So that's why you should study your astrology. And I'm still studying my astrology. So I've been studying it since I was 6 years old. So you never stop. Because then your magnetized light body, that when you took your first breath with the soul inside of a body, whether you were born or you're a walk-in, you are experiencing things by transits, the movement of the planets as they are intermediaries to the stars. So, you know, you might think that like some demon is getting you, but it's actually Uranus going through your 7th house, which will put you in court and all kinds of incidents, accidents, problems with other people when Uranus is in your 7th house. So you don't need like to have some demon removed. You just need to know your astrology. You need to know that you have Uranus acting as an intermediary right now, causing incidents, accidents, revolutions, sometimes real problems when it's moving through something in your chart. You're not demon possessed. All you need to know is your astrology. So the better you are at it, the less you have to consult with me. And sometimes I'll give you a date. I'll be like, oh my gosh, tell your husband that Mars is going over his ascendant between this and this. And Mars is the planet of war. So do you get it? It's very simple. But, you know, to me, it's complex because it also is like our whole galactic history. And that's why the Pleiadians are unfortunately not our friends, because they are unresolved dead consciousness from that very constellation that I am trying to show you. That's our galactic history. Now, I also wanted to show you what time is. So that's time. Okay? See all the swirly, girly, moving around times? Time is not linear. So what's happening is causality. And what's happening now is the gray alien timeline, which I've spoken about before, and everyone's like, what are you talking about, Lolita? Some of us came back to this time because we knew that the result of this was the grays. And so that's the issue that we're in again right now, is that we need enough consciousness to hold the divine blueprint to be able to continue Gaia's consciousness because of the network of the Russian dolls all stacking up. Like, you don't want one broken because the whole thing will start to wobble. All right, that's how important this is. And that's how important the Indigos are, and how important it is to protect yourself and realize the miracle that you are. So, yeah, it's good to see you. And I hope I covered everything. There were a lot of things I wanted to put in this, so this is a longer video than usual. But thank you so much, and bye-bye for now.